Hello everyone, welcome back to the world's easiest Framer crash course. In this video, we're going to talk about Framer, which is a no-code AI-powered platform used by designers and creative professionals to design, build, and publish professional responsive websites. You can create high-fidelity prototypes. You can actually publish functional websites built with Framer with hosting, CMS, and SEO optimizations. And it also enables real-time collaboration with members and allows for easy feedback from clients. So let's just get started by opening up Framer. Let's just go to framer.com, log into our Framer account and get started. We're going to create a new project. Go up to the top on the right side, click on the new project button, and this is going to create a completely new project for us. Alright, now that this is loaded up, the first section that I want to talk about is the insert section. You can insert basically anything you'd want from this section. A couple of things that you can insert from the insert section include pre-made website sections, for example, a hero section or a logo string. You can have navigation options, for example this navigation, which can just be dragged and dropped, and you can have menus as well. This is a simple menu. I no need for it right now, and we can just press delete to delete it, but it's present there, and if you want to add any special kind of menus, that option is also available. You can also add CMS features, which are content management systems. You can have content management system collections, which can start by adding a single blog, or you can import them from somewhere else. You can also have fields that you edit for these content sections, but we're going to get into this in a different video on Framer CMS, which you can find at the top right corner here at the top. Let's just start by talking about the elements that you can import. For example, you can have icons. These are a couple of icon libraries. Iconic, Hero, Meteor are different icon libraries that make icons of different types, and you can basically import these icons. The next option is media, where you can import images, GIFs, videos, YouTube videos, Vimeo embeds, or different kinds of animation or audio files. The other options you can have inside of the site are forms of all sorts. You can have email signups, form embeds, or interactive elements like slideshows, carousels, stickers, cookie banners. Let's just import one of these, see what happens. You can connect it to content, and this will just do a wonderful job as a slider that kind of keeps on going forever. You can also have social media imports, for example Instagram, Facebook, X, or Google Map embeds right here inside of your site, so you can have your Twitter feed embedded right here if that is what you want. You can also import utility-based features, for example Lemon Squeezy or Gumroad for payments if you're selling products, code blocks if you are a programmer, or embed any other forms of web pages. Contra is also sometimes a demand for designers because Contra is a freelancing platform and it's kind of popular amongst UI UX designers right now. So if you want to link your freelance Contra profile, that is also very doable. And this actually does the whole job of Contra quite well by linking to all of the different ways you could have your packages or your services right here. And again, you can go ahead and change this and customize it with your Contra profile, and then it will become much easier to deal with. You can also have other creative elements that you can import, for example a wave or a grid pattern in the background. This can take up as much space as you would want, and this can also be a very pretty looking item separator, so it can separate two different items, and you can change the different ways these elements are put in here, which is great for aesthetic purposes. You can have noise patterns, grid patterns, date time patterns, scribbles, or any other elements that you could want here. This is the wireframer tool inside of Framer AI, where you can use AI to create a landing page wireframe, and you can get started with any of these prompts or type one yourself. Let's just do an about page prompt to see what Framer wireframer does. If you would want the entirety of the wireframer crash course of Framer, you can find that at the top here as well. This is a simple page for a design studio called Rover in dark mode, and this basically lets you see a simple wireframe of what that could potentially look like. Again, this does need a lot of customizations, but this is a good starting point if there is absolutely nothing you'd want right now other than to have a good starting point. Again, this is pretty much it for the insert section. The next section I want to talk about is the layout section. This is super duper fun because the layout section is actually quite simple. You can import a frame. A frame is similar to a frame that you'd find in Figma. You can have other elements inside of this frame. So frame is the container for other elements. You can have images, text, whatever else you'd want in here. You can have rows in this frame. So for example, I can have rows which could contain more than one item. You can have columns right here, which is also a kind of container. So you could create columns where things are done vertically. This is a vertical collection of more than one things. Rows are horizontal collections of more than one things, and you can also have grids if you would want. And again, a frame is the element that holds all sorts of content inside of itself. So it's just a box basically. You can have images here as well. Choose the image, choose its resolution or the type of filling it's going to do. So these are going to be applicable as soon as we get for ourselves an image. So I'm just going to select an image right here. This is the image that we have for today, and you can choose to do a couple of different versions of its resolution. This is kind of very important when you want to make sure you have the perfect quality of images depending on what screen size and resolutions you're working with. You can choose to have different types of image fills. So for example, you can have an image that fills up the entirety of the space, fit, which just makes sure the image fits entirely even if it leaves a little bit of space inside of the frame at the top and bottom here. You can have stretch, which stretches the image no matter what that would make the image look like, just to take up the frame even if it starts looking weird like this. Or you can have tile, where this image is going to take up the original width and height that it had with its original creator, and it will tile if you make the frame any larger. So that's the couple of different ways of doing your images. You can have different positioning. So for example, you can position it to the center, bottom right, bottom left, and again these are relative to the internal frame that you're working with. So if we put this image at one of these places, made it quite small, then positioning would become quite important, because now this is relative to the ultimate container that we're working with. Again, you can have alt text, which is going to be alternative text. This is for browser accessibility if you would want this image to have that, but we'll just save it for later for the Framer SEO video. The image fill is just one of the many kinds of fills you can have in any container. You can have color based fills, you can have gradient based fills. This is a radial gradient, which means it goes from the inside out in two different colors. You can have a linear gradient, which means it goes in one direction only, or you can have an angular gradient, which takes up the entirety of this angle with two different colors. And the final one is the image that we just saw. You can also import a video in a very similar fashion, and you can have any video you'd want over here. The next element that I want to talk about is text inside of any frame at all, or independently as well. You can add some text. Look at me, I can't spell some. And you can let this basically be a part of any frame at all and do a bunch of cool stuff with it. For example, you can have effects of animations, overlays on top of this, or change its fonts, colors, sizes, font weights, letter spacing, line height, alignment, and a bunch of basic text settings. You can change the cursor. So for example, when the person hovers over this text, you can change this to have a different kind of cursor, and this cursor can follow us as well. Let's choose from one of these cursors right here. So when we hover over this element, we're going to get this cursor of copy. Again, these are different cursor states that are just super duper fun to try out on your own. And you can keep on exploring these properties as you go. Basically, this is for alignment relative to the page. This is to link this text to a specific place. So for example, you can link this, because we're on the slash page website page now, you can link this to the home page, or you can link this with a certain style. So right now it's just changing this to a blue font size, but you can change the style when some kind of text is a link. So all linked text in this style would now be pink. And those are some of the very simple things you can do as you're getting started. And as soon as you start to find the need to do something else, something specific, which you will know as a designer, all of these other features start making sense as soon as you start using Framer. You can again choose the width and height of the container, but if you're using fit, which just takes up the entirety of this text, fits it as you'd want to go, then you don't need to have any number over here. And fixed makes this text container fixed. Relative makes this text container relative to some other value. Let's just do a fit content, because that's just the cleanest way to do things. Height is also very, very similarly working. You can grow this text box to take up the entirety of the space of the width. So this is auto width right now. You can change it to say auto height, so it's just going to match the height of our container, or you can have it be randomly fixed size. So you can choose the fixed size as you would want. You can also have min max here, which means you can add a minimum or a maximum width and height, which is always going to be the same. Again, you can add vectors. So for example, you can have rectangles over here, add a border radius to them, which is just going to make sure all of our borders are cornered out and rounded. You can rotate this if you would want to. This is also a very, very fun thing to try. You can add numbers with your keyboard if you would want. Flip it vertically or horizontally, which is just ways of rotating things. You can reduce its opacity from 0 to 1, which is basically its visibility. You can add more styles from over here. You can have a fill alpha, which is basically going to fill out alpha values if you know what those are in colors. Or you can have a shadow style where you can add a shadow to this container. So let's just get fill alpha to 1, and then you can add a shadow to this container on the XY axis. Again, I love these because you can basically choose what you'd want, where you'd want, and this is basically giving us an inner shadow. You can also have an outer shadow as usual, and you can make this shadow as blurry or as less blurry as you would want it to be. You can also write this number by your own keyboard. Similar to the rectangle, you also have an oval. All of these things remain the same. You can also have strokes on all of these shapes, which are outer outlines. Again, you can change the colors over here. Let's just do a blue. You can add widths. You can make sure that these strokes are aligned in the center of the circle, or you can have them be aligned in the insides. You can have an array of dots over here if you would want a dotted fill. You can end each of these dots with a circular build or with squared builds, or just end at the top. So the difference between this and this is where the shape ends at this circle, and one of these lets you cap it off exactly where it ends, and one of these lets there be a little bit of padding, just as there is a little bit of padding on the circular rounded caps. You can also have a join, but this is more applicable if you're working with something like this rectangle, where I will show you what join looks like. Let's just add a little bit of width, add a little bit of an array because we want there to be dots, and I'm going to get rid of my border radius. So I'm just going to select all of these corners at once and get their border radius down to 0. And now we have actual edges joining each other at different places. This is going to show you what it looks like when you change these join values. So this is where two lines are joining together, and you can basically have that join be pointed, have that join be rounded, or have that joint be edged out. And these are the three different ways of using join. Again, a very small little detail, but something that we ignore all the time, and it just causes trouble when you don't know how to use your own tools. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is create a polygon. Again, the polygon also works exactly as you would want any other thing to work. You can choose for it to be visible or invisible, and these are just binary states, and they're quite fun to work with if you just want visibility to be toggled off to see what it would look like to have this thing be visible or perhaps not. And then you can create a star as well. Again, you can change more colors, use this pointed corner to make rounded edges for your star. This is basically the border radius, but it looks kind of cuter when you're doing with a star, and you can create custom paths if you want. So now this is a basic pen tool which you also see in Figma or any other tools that you'd want to use. You can create any shapes you'd want as soon as you make sure the shapes are closed off, meaning they have no outer free endpoints. Now you can also add a fill inside of this shape. Where is our shape? This is our shape. Wow, we've crowded the screen so bad I can't see my own creation. Now you can change the color of the stroke, add a little bit of width to our stroke, and now add a fill. This is what our fill looks like. Again, it's at 50% opacity right now, but you can change that. You can also use all these different kinds of color coding tools, color code values, but at the end of the day, all of them are used to change the same colors. You can have all these color fills. So this is a basic color fill. You can have a linear gradient or a radial gradient based color fill, but again, all of these remain the same. You've seen how these tools work. All of them work in a very similar fashion. This currently is the home page. This is our slash page, and the last option we have is a CMS collections option where you can start content management if you would want that. We'll cover this in the Framer CMS crash course, which you can find right here at the top. Again, let's go back to the homepage, and now I want to talk about some of Framer's build tools that we have been ignoring for such a long amount of time. Again, this is the main Framer button. You can use this to go to the main dashboard where you had all of your projects. Let's just go back to our main project that we were working with for such a long time. And now you can create a new file if you would want, a new page if you would want, a new page folder if you want. Sort these pages alphabetically, and this is already sorted, so we're kind of not seeing the effects of that. Upload images or videos, import a file from Figma, publish this site outside, which we'll talk about in just a second. Duplicate this file, archive this file if you're done with it, copy remix links for when you want to collaborate, transfer this project to a different team, invite other collaborators inside of your file, or most importantly, version history, which is a version of event that we've been working with. So for example, Framer automatically comes with its autosave, which means that every couple of minutes it automatically saves the work you've been doing. If right now you did something that's a really bad change and you basically messed up your site and it's so far off gone and it's just looking so horrible that you would much rather have the version that you did 5 minutes ago as opposed to the mess that you're currently in, it's really easy to go back to that version by using version history, which is a way of giving you back what you used to have. This is kind of a master undo, which is what I like to call it, because you kind of get to go back a really long time ago into the past when things were a little bit better and easier to work with, and you can start improving from this point on. Again, as you start needing these tools, you can always Google in any confusion, even if you don't remember everything all the time. How do you find content on Framer? Using the find content tool. How do you cut, copy, or paste content, which I'm surprised you'd want to do, because again, this is just really easy stuff. But you can find at the end of the day all of these different features either by exploring yourself, which is what I personally recommend, or just Google them whenever you need them, because this isn't very central to building the site. But as soon as you start using Framer a lot, you'll end up needing it automatically. Let's say we were done with the site. How would we publish it? How would we present it as the final version? You just go back to the top over here, click on the present button, and this is going to give us a presentation of what our final site would look like. You can also invite other collaborators, adding different email IDs, or share this link with anyone if you simply want people to click on a link and get on your file as viewers or collaborators. And finally, after you're done with it, you can publish the site to the outside world, and this is going to give you a pre-built name for your site on Framer's main domain. You can link this to a separate domain name in Framer, and you can still choose to edit this site if you would want to with Framer very quickly, very easily. So for example, if I want to have landing a huge page, that could also be done here. So basic text editing, basic content editing is still possible. You can have your Contra username linked here directly, or your Twitter URL also built here directly. Then you can just finish editing whatever you're working with, go back to your actual site, and this gives you a really nice site built in Framer. One of the things that I do want to talk about for your own user experience is you can use the pan tool right here to pan when you have a lot of content. So you can just move around on the page. If you're working at the bottom and you remember you forgot to change something at the top, this is just really easy to work with. You can also use the comment section to have comments. For example, I can say this looks nice, or this looks done, and this will just be done over here, and I've completely forgotten the spelling of done, which is a delightful little mistake which you guys get to deal with. You can change this to be dark mode, which is what people love all the time. And I think this is also useful not only in nights, but when you're building something with real world dark mode built in. I think it's really important to be able to see what that would look like in dark mode. Switching to dark mode in Framer is such an effective hack when you're finally done with the light mode of a site, or when you're just making a site that is dark mode only. When you're working with something in dark mode in real time, it's really a nice idea to be working with it with the Framer dark mode, because now you get to feel the entire aesthetic of dark mode inside of dark mode. So it's kind of less jarring as a designer to be working through the design aspects of things. You can also have a bunch of really cool plugins inside of Framer, which I absolutely love. And again, you can zoom in, zoom out from using these tools. You can use the fast zoom tool to zoom in and out really quickly of everything that we've been doing, and this is just giving your own keypad superpowers. You can choose a nudge amount, so you can use these keys to move these layers by this many pixels. Let's do 100, and now when I press these keys, it's just going to move my cursor by a whole lot. This is again a really cool Framer super tip. My favorite remains the fast zoom feature, because of how quickly you can go ahead and think about different things and just be able to work with elements that are all over the place, because that is where my mind is as a creative. I am so happy you got to see this crash course. This has been the world's easiest Framer crash course, and my hope here is today you get a very real life and accurate description of what Framer is, how it works, and get started building your own sites with Framer very quickly and easily. Subscribe to this channel, because in the upcoming days we're going to talk about the advanced side of Framer, the CMS, the responsiveness, the prototyping, the animations, the plugins, and Framer hacks that I've learned from my practical experience. Just stuff that's going to make your life much easier as an advanced UI UX designer. And I will see you in the next one. Alright, love you, bye.